Welcome to Brooker Bonsai, and today we're going to be repotting my Schefflera Bonsai. It's late summer in the UK, so it's perfect time to be repotting tropicals. It's got lots of stored up energy that will be then redirected back into root growth. So today we're just going to cut back some of these long shoots so that we balance the vigour and leave the tree from a pruning perspective and just focus on repotting it. So let's zoom you in and take a 360 view look at the tree now. So here's the front of the tree. As you can see, it's all a bit of a jumbled mess. We need to be able to see into here and balance out that vigour a little bit. So today we might take off some of those leaves. Coming round to the side, to the back of the tree, back round to the side and to the front. So first things first, there are kind of three main branches here that I'm just going to prune back, and what I'm looking for is outward facing leaf nodes that kind of aim out of the tree, and what will happen is when I prune just above that, the bud will activate and then a new branch will grow out. And this will ensure that we can keep this like banyan-style tree where we have a single trunk that sprouts into multiple trunks that's really low and kind of tapers out towards the edge of the planting. So I'll zoom you in and I'll show you what I'm considering removing now. So here's inside the tree. You can see the nabari is somewhere down here. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. And it's getting quite thick. So we want to come up the tree, and you can see we've got a node here from last time where we pruned. And this one's quite weak. I can see the tip has possibly even died off there. I think you can see that there. It's just because it's been shaded out. This one's kind of taken off and grown really strong. So what we're doing is we're going to prune it back to either this bud here or this bud here. And that will then continue the growth outwards. So let's give that a prune back now. So I'm just going to prune it rough like that. You can see taking off this kind of huge branch here. And now that I can see a bit clearer, remove that inward facing leaf, I can make a decision in terms of where I want this branch to come from. So like I said, we want it to be flowing outwards, and there's a really nice bud kind of here or here. This one kind of grows over the top of the branch below it, so I think we want to be going to that lower one. Just going to nibble it back till we have the desired height. Because these nodes are so compact, we want to make sure we're also leaving space for dieback. So there's that now all pruned up, and what I'm hoping over the course of the rest of the summer and into early autumn that this then activates and this bud begins to grow, or the one at the back activates and the bud begins to grow. I'm going to remove this front facing leaflet because it's just shading out the leaves below it. We want to get light now back down into the bottom of the tree. There's also some downward facing leaves here that just aren't really contributing, so we can remove those as well. But you can see this scar right in here in the tree. Hopefully you can see that there, the previous pruning scar, and that's almost fully healed. So the tree's been grown really strong this summer. Moving up the tree, we can see here we've got branching beginning to happen. Just there, hopefully you can see that. So we're going to prune just above the node there, which I think was the previous pruning, which you can see at the back. So that will then activate these two side shoots and get the tree growing again. There's also a back branch out here that's growing away in a nice direction. So you want to keep that as well. Finally, onto the side branch here. You've got some nice nodes, really low, that we can prune back to kind of continue that outward facing movement. So now we've got those big branches out of the way and we can kind of see into the tree and we're getting light down into there. We want to take this opportunity to just reassess our tree front. I think because of the weight of the tree and those branches, it's kind of leaned over a little bit. It could have been the windowsill it was on. So we're just going to prune back some of the leaves to, again, get a bit more light down into the centre of that tree. We want to keep the leaves on the branches. Whilst Schefflera can handle complete defoliation, what I don't want to do is weaken those already weak branches like this one here that I showed you first. And then the tree sheds them and then we lose ramification. So I'm going to make sure there's a healthy growing tip and a healthy leaves on each branch so that it doesn't weaken and the tree just sheds it. So the next step is now going around the tree and just giving it a bit of a clean up, removing some of that debris and just seeing what we've got. So as you can see, the tree kind of is leaning this way away from the camera and is leaning towards the viewer this side. So this may become the front once we repot it, but for now I'm just going to come in and remove some of these leaves just so we can see what's going on and get a bit of light down into the lower part of the tree. We've got some, see this whole plant pot's full. We've got these aerial roots that are growing across the surface of the soil here. So just thinning, removing those leaf petioles so that we can see what's going on without weakening the branch too much. It is the disadvantage of banyan-style trees, that everything's so low to the ground that when the tree gets bushy like this, it can be sometimes a bit hard to see what's going on. I'm also going to try changing the soil structure. You can see it's very perlite heavy, and that's resulted in the tree drying out pretty quick. So I think, that's also potential resource constrictions and why we were starting to see, tips dying off. So this tip is dying off. Let's prune it back to some healthy foliage, and then we'll seal that up because we don't want it to continue possibly rotting backwards or getting weaker. Just pruning some branches that are, some leaf petioles that are hanging over lower branches so that we can get light, from these kind of relatively strong upper branches and down into the lower branch structure. And this thinning will also help ensure that we don't get insect problems and things like that. So now at the front here, we've got a tip that's died off. So I'm just going to prune this one back again. And then we've got now a kind of almost like a leader coming up here. I want to direct it upwards, so I'm just going to prune the tip off that one too. So that's now all the foliage tidied up, and we've kind of balanced everything quite nicely. Hopefully the tree will respond quite well to this treatment, and it's time to repot the tree. So first things first, we're going to take our little banyan-style tree out of the pot and see what the root base and the nabari is looking like. It's nice and compact now, and the next flush of growth that come in will be really small. So once we do get the next flush of growth, I can come in and remove maybe some of these older bigger leaves, and it will look much more smaller and miniature. So let's have a look at now repotting. So taking the tree out of the pot, we just want to be careful we don't damage any of those buds. You can see it's come out in one large piece. we've got a lot of root growth at the bottom, and less so, you know, around the top portion of the soil. So again, this indicates that the soil is drying out possibly too quickly, and we need something that's maybe a better balance of both perlite, akadama, and any of this turfous rock here. So let's begin scraping out the roots and see what we're left with. When scraping out the roots, you can see that I'm pulling the roots radially from the center, and what that will do is that will tear any crossing roots but favor those radial roots that come straight out from the trunk. The reason we do this is that those radial roots are the ones that really contribute to the flare at the bottom base of the tree, which are hopefully, we've got some nice flare I can show you. And it helps just build a more flowing natural root base. That way you can ensure that they don't end up fusing together, the roots don't get, you know, in knots, and air and nutrition can kind of penetrate properly deep into the soil. And ultimately that will result in a much healthier tree, and one that can respond well to future treatments like this and repotting. You can also see the root mass this side is much denser, and that's probably because it was feeding those two really long branches. So again, you know, by balancing the top of the tree and balancing the bottom of the tree, you help build that ramification, and it really just demonstrates how the top mirrors the roots. So, you know, if you've got top healthy growth in one specific area, you know that the whole tree or the whole root system below it is supporting that. And so by balancing it, you get a much better rounded root base, which then means your trunk or your trunk flare, your nabari, will be also you know, nice and even all the way around, rather than one, you know, part of the trunk taking off and getting thicker, and then you end up with a really like odd shaped tree. Schefflera roots are quite interesting. They're, you know, they can be quite tough like this one, but really flexible as well. And then the new growth is kind of really soft and almost like fleshy. It's quite interesting to root system to look at and train. But you can see here how flat our root system is at the bottom, and this is what we want to keep encouraging. Removing any of this kind of downward facing root growth and encouraging the side roots to kind of grow out, because that will help make our trunk look more mature, and get that nice kind of flare at the base. Okay, so looks like we're nearly there in terms of repotting this. Just kind of removing some soil that's maybe a bit closer to the trunk. And we've got some, you know, relatively big surface roots here, which is good. The tree is definitely responding well to our bonsai techniques. So I'll zoom you in so you can take a look at the root base. So here's the root base. You can see we've got these really nice kind of flare, particularly along this side here into the soil. And we've got the same around the back with some really big thick roots that we can kind of sort out today. So they've really kind of taken off, and there's some areas with, you know, nice finer roots like you can see here. And it's really flat at the bottom. So those kind of really thick roots, we're going to cut back hard so that we can encourage more ramification in the roots and finer roots, which will help the tree grow strongly. Okay, so let's have a look at the root base, see what we've got here. We've got this root kind of sticking up, which needs to come off entirely. You can see they're quite long. It's a good sign the tree's been growing well. Honestly, I think this whole root needs kind of pruning back quite hard. But we need to make sure that the angle is flat so that the roots will then grow from the tip. So I'm just going to cut it back because I can't really get in there. And then kind of cut it back flat. See that, like that, so that we'll get roots kind of growing from the tip here and they'll continue to extend. So going around here, we can see we've got this one that kind of sticks up into the air. Just going to cut that back nice and flat. And the same with this root here, just trying to find where it comes from. Like that, so they will grow from the tip and down into the soil. We've got a root here that cuts across. We can kind of remove. And again here we've got another really thick root, so I'm going to cut it back and then cut it flat so we can get that root growing in the right direction. To the side we've got a root here that just grows up into the air, which we don't want. We want everything to be flowing out naturally. And same here, we can cut all of these back. This root here, whilst it's growing out radially, quite nice, I think it's coming from somewhere else in the tree, so we need to try and untangle it like this. And then just cut it back so we get a bit more ramification. Same with these roots here. And that's that side now, kind of relatively pruned up. You can see we've got all the roots kind of growing outwards away from the tree. And if we flip it over, we can do the same, just cutting it nice and flat. This root here grows out to the side, so again, we want to cut that back and angle it outwards. Got a nice root here growing radially, just tip it back. Next, we've got kind of two roots that fork, which is really nice. You can see that. They're coming out kind of radially. I think they've just been pulled over a little bit because they hit the pot. So what we want to do is just prune them back and let them grow a bit more. Got a root here at the bottom that grows out that we don't really want, so we can remove all of those. And a root here that grows down, and these downward roots, they don't contribute to the flare of the soil. So you can see here how all of these kind of contribute to the flare of the trunk, whereas the downward ones, they make the trunk thicker, but you don't get that nice flare. So over to here, we've got some nice big thick roots that we can kind of cut flat and back quite hard. And this one, I think it just cranks out. Can't see it because of the leaves. There we go. It just cranks out too far, so I'm going to remove that entirely. Got a couple of roots here that we can, they're quite radial. Can prune them all back. And a big root that sticks out to the side here that we can also prune back. Something a bit more radially. So that's the tree now, that kind of initial root plane trimmed up. A bit of ramification, not much coming out here, but that's fine. Hopefully we'll get that with time. We're going to flip over the tree now onto the base and just basically prune back any roots that are growing straight down, because we don't really want them. We don't have any need for those type of roots. We want to discourage them from growing really, so that we get a nice flat root base. You can see how we've got a really nice flat root base here, but here it kind of sticks up a little bit. So again, we just want to cut that back a bit more, so it's nice and flat. Now we can see in here a bit more. We can come in and just tease out that soil, so that when we begin adding the fresh soil in a bit, it's got some really nice air that the tree can grow into. All those nice gaps and fresh soil. So the final bit to do is, I can see actually this root should be removed. Let's cut that back a bit more. The final bit now is to balance the root base. So, we've got it nice and flat. What we now want to start doing is making sure that we have the same amount of roots all the way around, so that one part of the tree doesn't take off too fast or grow too strongly than the other, and that everything is nice and balanced. So just going to work my way around the edge, just trimming everything back. And when I plant this tree, I will plant it slightly deeper into the soil, or plant the soil quite slightly higher, and then over the next few months, or at least when we come into spring next year, I can scrape back that soil and really show off that nice nabari. So that's the tree now, all root pruned and ready for replanting. So I'm going to treat this Schefflera to some fresh soil. This is the soil that I use. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. It is a mixture of 50% Akadama and 50% perlite. And I find that works really well. So what I've done, if I zoom you in, is I've created like a mound here that you can see. And I will kind of plant the Schefflera kind of on top and then nuzzle it down in. So let's give that a go. So first I've got to decide, where's the front of the tree. I think this is definitely the back. It feels like the tree is kind of going away from us. And to me, this feels more like the front. The tree is kind of leaning forwards. We've got nice, even root base splitting either side, which works really well. So that's the front. I'm just nuzzling it down into the soil, so that the nabari and where the roots start is just in line with the top of the pot. And then once we've got that, I can just begin filling the pot up with soil. Because we've removed a lot of roots, and the tree will be fine. It can handle this kind of treatment. There won't be much working the soil into the roots, but we will be doing that nonetheless. So now the tree's in place in the soil, let's just have another look at it. I think it could be lifted a little bit like that. It was possibly a bit too low. And then with a wooden chopstick, I'm just going to work the soil down into the roots, and that should hold it all in place really firmly, so that when I'm moving the tree around, or if there's any wind, it's not going to blow over in the pot. And air pockets in the soil can actually create problems with the roots. Particularly from things staying too wet or too dry. So we want to make sure that the soil mass consistency is the same, so that when you're watering it, everything is drying out roughly all at the same time. Okay. So that's the tree now all pruned up and repotted. The next step is to seal up those wounds, and that'll help with recovery. It'll also prevent dieback, which means that, you know, where I've cut quite close to these nodes, they should be okay. For this, I use this cut paste, not a sponsor, but it's really good. I've had it for years. It's really good value, you don't need too much. And you can see, you know, I've pasted some on other parts of the tree, and you know, they've healed really well, and there's been no issues. So you can see here we've got this big wound at the top here, and we don't want that to dry out because that could die back. So just putting a little bit of this cut paste on, and that will just stop it from drying out. Now let's take a look at the carnage cam. So here's everything we've taken off today. Taken off some really long branches. Probably, you know, save a lot of these as cuttings. And over here, you know, we've taken off, you know, quite a lot of roots also. So that's the work now on the tree done. Let's zoom you in and take a 360 view look at what we've completed today. Okay, so the tree has lost a lot of height, as you can see. And here's the front of the tree. You know, we've got kind of a branch here with like 3 or 4 branches coming off it, and the same at the top here. So we're starting to build ramification, which is really encouraging. So here's the front of the tree, coming around to the side, coming around to the back of the tree, back round to the side, and to the front. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Don't forget to give us a like and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, welcome. There's a subscribe button just in the corner of the screen there. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.